Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back to our lecture series of Light of Kailash for Shangshung, UK. And today I'm very happy to welcome Professor Vesna Wallace with us. And we're very lucky to catch her between the end of the school term in California, where she's teaching at university there at Santa Barbara. And I know it's a very busy time, so thank you, Vesna, for making the time to give us this talk today. And she was telling me that she's traveling to Mongolia very soon. So we're catching her right in the right time. Vesna is a very frequent traveler to Mongolia, quite an expert on Mongolian studies, as well as India and Tibet, so large spanning interest. And we're very happy to have you here today. The talk will last about an hour, and then we'll have some questions at the end. So please feel free to write your questions in the chat or just to ask them at the end. Welcome, everybody. Welcome, Vesna, and thank you.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here. And I know it's afternoon there. It's a morning here, so I'll say good day rather than good morning. Jamyang and I were talking about different possibility of different topics. And so I thought I will talk about something that I'm beginning to do my research on. So it's a good exercise for me, but also hopefully it will be some useful information for you. So the topic is on a pranayama. And as some of you may know, that prana, which is also sometimes simply referred as the wind, or in the Sanskrit term, it's a vayu, that has been known as and celebrated and worried about since the time of the Vedas. So, but the term pranayama, meaning the breath restraint or restraint of vital energies, is much later than all these different references to prana. And perhaps so far, based on my latest research, it seems that the earliest datable occurrence of the term pranayama can be traced in the Indic text, which are called Dharma Sutras, which are kind of legal, so to speak, Indic text, where it is generally used in the context of ritual self-purification and preparation for meditation. So in one of these texts called Vajrayāna Dharma Sutra, which again is quite old, some dated between the 8th to the 5th century before Common Era. So pranayama is declared predominant in eliminating all moral or ethical faults. I'm giving you now a little kind of time sketch of history of pranayama, and then we will come to Buddhist and Tibetan discussions on pranayama. But I thought it might be interesting for you just to see how different usages and application and what is meant by pranayama throughout history. So this early application of pranayama, as I said, was ritual, mechanical in character, serving as a technique of purification paired with mantra recitations. But later, in another Dharma Sutra text written by Vasishtha, which some different authors date differently, Patrick Olivelle, who has been translating all of these texts, date is to the 1st century Common Era, but most likely it is earlier. And in the famous Manusmriti, which again dates somewhere between 3rd century Common Era, before Common Era, to the 3rd century Common Era, because these texts were, developing slowly, new sections were added to them. And so in these two texts, pranayama is explicitly linked to austerity, known in Sanskrit as tapas. that generates the heat, inner heat, by means of the threefold suppression of breath with the syllable Om and utterances of sacred syllables like Pu, Pu, Vach, Swach, which represent the sky, atmosphere, and heavenly realm. Here we learn that the heat generated by this austerity was said to purify also the faults in the sense faculties in the same way as impurities in a metal are burned when smelted. But a real conceptual shift from the approach to pranayama occurred in one of the classical Upanishads, the Maitri Upanishad, dating around the 4th century before Common Era. Here, pranayama became incorporated in a structured six-limbed, known in Sanskrit as Shadanga, right, contemplative practice oriented toward the broader Upanishadic discourse on stilling and restraining the mind as a precondition for higher states. Similarly, many of you are probably familiar with Patanjali's Yoga Sutra, where pranayama stands as the fourth of the 8 limbs of yoga. And there, in Patanjali's yoga system of yoga, pranayama is more of a mind stabilizing technique, a condition for various types of concentrations or dharanas, which is a 5th phase, and not the end in itself. It is there defined as a severance of the motions of inhalation and exhalations. And it has 3 modalities: external, internal, and then suppressed or halted, which then in later sources that was termed, some of you who are maybe studied some of yoga, were termed as rechaka, meaning exhalation, puraka, meaning inhalation, and kumbhaka, meaning retention of the breath. So these even terms that now are so well known came also after Patanjali, so they are also quite later. So according to Vyasa's commentary on the Yoga Sutra, these 3, the inhalation of external air, the exhalation of the internal air, which is expulsion of the belly air, and the stopping or severance or the absence of the both motions is what constitute pranayama. So in Patanjali's system of this 8-fold limbed yoga, we don't find any references to channels or nadis of vital energies. They're not named. There are no mentions of chakras, no kundalini or chandali, no specific bandhas, and no mention of nostrils alterations. So this comes all much later. The elaboration of this we find in the Hatha Yoga synthesis and in the Tantric systems with their detailed nadis or channels of vital energies and chakras. So this seems to be post-Patanjalan. By the time the pranayama entered Buddhist Tantric yogic practices, it became strongly internalized and physiologized, operating on the subtle body, pranic winds within the systems of the channels for soteriological purposes, resulting always in some form of immutable bliss. So the earliest clear Buddhist reference to breath practice are not to pranayama as such, but to mindfulness of breathing, known in Pali as anapana sati, found in the Pali Nikayas, particularly in the Anapanasutta, or the sutra on the mindfulness of breath, and in Apana Samyutta of the Sutta Nikaya. So this mindfulness of breathing, or anapanasati, as an observational, attending to the natural flow of birth, is quite different from the pranayama proper, which is a deliberate breath restrained characteristic of yogic tantric systems. So the mindfulness of breath is also distinct from the earliest retentive and controlled breath holding characteristic of Brahmanical ritual recitations, and from shamanic ascetic technique of breathless meditation, which is based on Buddha's pre-enlightenment experience, which the Buddha criticized in his Mahasacaka Sutta as an extremely painful and, in the end, fruitless. So the adoption of pranayama as a productive technique appears in Indian Buddhism relatively late within the tantric and yogic systems, where pranayama becomes an important phase in the completion stage of a tantric practice, in which Buddhist tantric adept or yogi regulates the course of vital energies of inhalation and exhalation to make them serviceable. So in the highest yoga tantra, referred to sometimes as unexcelled yoga tantras, is where we find this pranayama which occupies a central place in the six-phased yoga called Shadanga yoga practice, and is believed to lead directly to the attainment of full and perfect awakening, also referred to as the highest supramundane accomplishment. Although the six-phased yoga is common to all unexcelled yoga tantras, the content of the individual phases vary slightly from one tantric systems to another. Although they all, whether it is Kalachakra Tantra or Vajrayāna Tantra or Guhya Samaja Tantra, they all have this six-phase yoga that looks very similar, but content is not always identical. So to kind of understand where pranayama fits within these systems, on what it depends, and also what it is important for, I will give you again a short definition of these six yogas, of these six-phased yoga, so that you can see how these are all closely interconnected, and maybe that will give us better sense of the role of pranayama in this system. So this six-phased yoga, which is common to all unexcelled yoga tantra, the content of the individual phases, as I said, varies, but they all begin with what we can call retraction or withdrawal. In Sanskrit, it's called pratyahara. And this is a retraction of the sense faculties from their respective sense objects. So where in one meditation is such where all sense faculties are not engaged anymore with their sense objects. And through that, what happened is the sense faculties becomes unified. And when that happens, then the yogi with a reason divine eye, because yogi is not now hearing or seeing objects, right, with regular physical sense faculty, but new sense faculty arises called the divine sense faculty. And with that divine eye, the yogi perceives all phenomena now as insubstantial, as mere appearances. And oftentimes these appearances are said to be similar to an image in a prognostic mirror. Why? Because in a prognostic mirror, there is no some object outside of mirror that mirror reflects, like a regular mirror, right? But rather images that appear in a prognostic mirror are mere images, because they're prognosticating an event that doesn't yet exist, or a past event that no longer exists. So when this happens, when this divine eye arises, and now all the appearances and all phenomena are just appeared as empty, as nothing other than a mere appearance, then yogi enters the second phase, which is called meditative stabilization or dhyana. And this one takes place when yogi now, this phase has 5 factors, if you like to call them that. And this is when, first, when all phenomena are seen, then they are ascertained and reflected upon now by the yogi's mind is empty. And when that happens, then resulting experience of joy arises, and also what's called immutable, unshakable, stable bliss, experience of bliss arises. And now we come to the third phase, to the pranayama, which is really a central phase in the 6-phased yoga. And so when this experience of joys comes about, then the breath restraint is practiced. Pranayama is in practice. An uninterrupted flow of the wind of prana in a central channel is arise. Now, according to Vajrayāna, who wrote a commentary on the Shadanga Yoga, this 6-phased yoga, of the abbreviated Kala Chakra Tantra, the system that I'm most familiar with, pranayama is defined as a cessation of the left and right paths of the flow of prana in the channels called lalana on the left, and rasana, it's called the channel on the right. And the constant flow of the wind of prana in the central channel occurs. When the flow of the pranas of the channels which are parallel to the left and right of the central channel is stopped, and all the central channel is filled with that prana, that is called then pranayama. And here, this is done, and I'll talk more later about it. It is done by the means of this yoga of inhalation, exhalation, puraka, rechaka, and what's called kumbhaka or vase breath, where pranas are held in a central channel and brought all the way back to the belly. That's why it is called the vase, because belly looks a little bit swollen like a vase. And this is done with the syllable Om. The yogi brings the breath into the central channel with this syllable Hum. He hinders it, and with the syllable Ah, he exhales it in accordance with these 3 channels, which are said to, sometimes they're called the moon, the sun, and planet Rahu. So the first 3 phases, this withdrawal of the sense faculty from sense objects, meditative stabilization, and pranayama. These first three of the six-phase yoga are understood to be the causes of the final three phases of the six phases. And now beginning with retention as fourth. In this fourth, you will see how soon you will see how pranayama is really condition for dharana, and somehow they are almost indivisible. And they are in some senses also, in some sense, very similar. So in this fourth phase of yoga called dharana, or the phase of retention, the yogi brings pranas now into the four drops. Now, to understand what the drops are, it is said that in the four main chakras, namely in the forehead chakra, in the throat, in the heart, and in the navel, there are subtle drops of the size of a sesame seed, kind of transparent. They're made out of the essences of the father's semen and mother's ovum or menstrual blood, because this is what consciousness, when consciousness enters mother's womb, right, it appropriates those two, appropriates this conglomerate of mother's menstrual blood and a father's semen, which becomes the basis upon which consciousness develop new, or this new being will have a new body. But the essence of this always remains in the body, and this essence is material, made of subtle elements of earth, water, fire, wind, and space. And it is in the centers of these chakras. And these little drops are called, oftentimes, if you read anything of Tantric, you will hear about bindus. They are called the bindus. And they are in the center of these four chakras in the navel, heart, throat, and forehead. And so what happens in this fourth yoga is that the yogi brings the pranas into the center of these four chakras, meaning right into these drops, and sequentially exits them. But now there is a lot of experience of bliss, right, as this is taking place. And so within a Kala Chakra Tantric system, something similar also happening in other highest yoga tantras, is that bliss is slowly eliminating these material substances of these four drops. Because these also four little drops are like obscuration to the achievement or actualization of the four bodies of the Buddha, which are in some innate to us, but are not actualized. Right? So after this is being done in this fourth phase, then the new phase arises, and that phase is called recollection. In Sanskrit, it's called anusmriti, or almost like a memory. Because what happens at that time, when that an image of the yogi's chosen deity, called in Tibetan, it's called yidam, emerges, arises. And that image, it's not a visualized image, because this is something that is done in a tantras in a stage of generation, where yogi is meditating on a central deity and on a mandala of the deity in great detail. But here, that's why it's called recollection, because here the same image kind of, but now of a different essence, emerges spontaneously So it's not created. And it, again, because it is a mere appearance, it says also it is similar to the image in a prognostic mirror. And after that, a disk of light appears, emitting numerous rays of light. And then comes the rising of the three worlds, manifesting with numerous aspects. So, and these three worlds are now seen as this pure appearance, insubstantial appearances. And when this takes place, then the sixth phase of yoga arises. And with this sixth phase yoga, then imperishable bliss is experienced. And it is said that is experienced because due to the yogi's natural affection for the chosen deity that has manifested spontaneously. Because when that deity is spontaneously manifest, it's like a prognosis or like a seal that says that you will achieve enlightenment in that very form. So if yogi is practicing six-phase yoga in the context of Kala Chakra deity, then yogi will experience or will manifest one's enlightenment in that form. But if he practices in the form of Guhya Samaja, then it will experience or realize that in the form of Guhya Samaja, or Vajrayāna, Chakra Samvara, and so on. So this sixth phase marks the final phase, and it is called Samadhi. But here, it's not like ordinary Samadhi that we think. It's really last step to awakening, in which the yogi's mind becomes unified with the mind of that deity, and the duality of the apprehending mind of a yogi and the apprehended object, which is the mind of deity, now completely ceases. The complete unification of one's own mind with the mind of deity takes place, or rather with the enlightened awareness, right? So there is no longer distinction. And this is the moment when yogi can and may achieve awakening. Now, just to again contextualize this pranayama practice, just a second. I just need to quickly look so if I don't have my notes, I wonder, and I start out, because there are so many connections to it, and we have only 1 hour or less, so I do not wish to burden you with too many details. So that first phase we talked, the pratyahara, or the phase of retraction of sense faculty, is said to slightly purify the central channel. To give you a little bit of context, the conceptual mind, this mind that constantly runs stories, thoughts are constantly rising, right? Torrent of thoughts. We constantly live in this, with this conceptual mind. And the conceptual mind is a dualistic mind, is the mind that always distinguishes this from that, I and the other, black and white, right? And that mind is dualistic mind. And the problem with dualistic mind is that gives rise to all kinds of mental elaborations. Out of feelings arise, out of this feeling our karmic activities arise, and suffering arises, and we are constantly in this samsara. But ultimate reality is one. It's a single unified reality. And this reality we experience in this multiple world. And that is because out of these chakras emerge these different channels, and the center and mind and the breath is never in the central channel, right? But it is only when the mind, when we bring our vital energies into the central channel, is that all thoughts cease. And the sense of bliss immediately arises. That bliss is like a mental peace that is experienced through every element in the body. So already in that first phase, when all the sense faculties are withdrawn and unified, already some purification of the central channel takes place. And that is like a self-control, right? And this self-control is achieved through mental stillness that is experienced in that second phase of meditative stabilization, so that the obstacles of conceptualizations do not arise. And what starts happening, the different signs appear naturally to the mind. And these 10 signs are said to be the signs of the clear light of mind. So there are daytime signs and there are nighttime signs. Daytime signs, when yogi actually does meditation with open eyes looking at the sky, cloudless sky, that a certain signs will arise during night times, which is called like nighttime yoga, when yogi practices in a pitch dark, no windows, no any openings in a room, then but fireflies, all kind of things appear. So I don't want to bother you with those, but these signs spontaneously arise, and they are saying, so these signs are reflections of the mind. So when a yogi perceives these signs, he actually is perceiving reflection of one's own mind. These signs are the signs that certain mental purification is taking place. So that second phase, the phase of mental stabilization, then thoroughly purifies the central channels, and then yogi recognizing when one yogi sees these signs, he recognizes them as his own mind and as empty forms, together with all karmic appearances as being of indivisible nature, free from conceptual elaborations. And then he stabilizes these signs. They don't flicker away, right? So then comes this pranayama. And in this phase of pranayama, these 10 signs, the 10 winds, the 10 vital energies that we have completely dissolve into central channel, resulting again in the cessation of the manifest conceptualizations of grasping the apprehended and the apprehender, meaning the subject and object, as different. Here one obtains various kinds of paranormal abilities, acquires mastery over outer and inner elements, the kind of mastery that in early Buddhism, if you have heard about Kasina method, or the method of meditating on earth elements or what fire element, on these different elements, and being able then through meditative stabilization brings those elements into existence, and then one can change the earth, water element into earth element and walk on the water, right? So while for others that earth element is still there, for a meditator it is earth element, solidity. But here this naturally kind of arise, both inner and outer. But also because through pranayama, what develops is a certain heat. In a Hindu context, it's very well known as Kundalini. Within the Buddhist Tantric context, it's called Chandali, which is kind of equivalent to Kundalini. This heat, blazing fire, arises in a navel, and which yogi then brings through those four chakras that I mentioned into the center of those chakras where those drops are, and slowly melts them away. And this is, of course, this meditative experience gives rise to bliss and emptiness, which again very clearly and spontaneously arise. Now, according to Tibetan master of Jonang tradition, Taranatha. Why I'm bringing Tibetan Jonang tradition in Taranatha here is because this tradition has best preserved the six-phased yoga in terms of practice. The others have the names of all yogic postures and so on, but the Jonang tradition still practices, and there is a still oral transmission that is very active. And here, even His Holiness Dalai Lama said once at public teachings here in Los Angeles, the Jonampas have best preserved Shadanga Yoga. And because Taranatha wrote several treatises on it, I thought I will bring him into discussion, because your institute is Institute of Tibetan Studies, so I didn't want to keep you in India all the time. So according to Taranatha's treatise on the sixth limbed yoga, called The Meaningful to Behold, Guidance of the Profound Paths of Vajrayāna. So in terms of the cause and effect in this sixfold path, the first three that I mentioned, retraction, meditative stabilization, and pranayama, are understood to be the causes of the final three phases. In the Kalachakra Tantra system of the six-phased yoga, the first two, retraction and meditative stabilization, correspond to what is in Sanskrit called seva, but sometimes it is translated from Tibetan as an approach to realization. Whereas pranayama and this retention meditation are called near actualization, because these two yogas block the impure karmic winds and indivisibly unite the winds and those drops in the chakras, bringing the yogi closer than before to the actualization of the enlightened body of gnosis, of ultimate reality. But these two phases of yoga would be impossible without the culmination of the previous two, of retention and meditative stabilization, which are the cause of actualizing union, the enlightened body of gnosis, in which empty form becomes manifest, in which appearances and the mind appear as indivisible. In this system, but like similarly as in other systems, our problem are our karmic winds, which we inherit from previous lifetimes. And so that's why this six-phased yoga always deals with a subtle body where all these karmic winds are stored. Because how is karma transmitted if mind is not an entity, but mind is simply a cognitive event, right? One one cognitive event arises, then ceases, another arises and ceases without some kind of lasting entity, call it Atman or permanent self, or something that links those, something that's permanent, some thread that links those cognitive events. So in Mahayana Buddhism, we find different explanations of that. And frankly, for me, they were never quite satisfactory. It is really here in Tantra that I say, there is another way of speaking about it. And so what happens, according to Vajrayāna theory, is that where is karma stored? It's in these karmic winds. And what are karmic winds made of? Consist of these pranas, these vital energies, are made out of subtle elements: earth, water, fire, wind, and space. So you get these interesting, which are set in motion by this samsaric mind. So when a person dies, it's not just this mind that leaves the gross body, this consciousness, right? But what also lives with that consciousness is subtle body, this pranic body made of karmic winds. So that in a way, body transmigrates too with these subtle elements. And this is where our karma is stored and transmitted. When this consciousness enters the mother's womb, this subtle body is changing and entering as well. And so that's a problem seen in Tantra, that karmic winds are foundation of samsara. And hence, unless we eliminate it, these transmigration experiences will continue. So the goal is to eliminate this samsaric winds. But in the Kala Chakra system, one is to eliminate them completely. So in this very lifetime, there is that kind of possibility where immediately arises this ultimate, you can call it a rainbow body, or of what is called the reflection of emptiness body. But in a Guhya Samaja, this takes place in the intermediate state, or bardo, between the death and rebirth. This is where one can realize the mind of clear light and the pranic body can cease. But in the Kala Chakra system, it can take place within a single lifetime. While one is still alive, one may completely disappear, at least physically. So that's with Prāṇāyāma and Dharana. But now we have this fifth phase, recollection, which now corresponds to actualization, but it's not yet full actualization. But it is close to it because it is a yoga of actualizing the deity's enlightened body, that it appears in these intervening spaces. Whereas the final phase, the samadhi phase, corresponds to the great actualization, because it actualizes the enlightened body of gnosis that perfects immutable bliss. So when we talk using the body of gnosis, the body of gnosis is really not the body, right? It is the self-aware bliss that is aware. It's not body at all, right? But we call it body because it is all pervasive like space. So when one achieves awakening in that way, mind is not limited with body. Mind is not individualized, right? because for as long as we are embodied being, whether in a subtle body as a ghost or in a gross body, that we somehow locate the mind somewhere here as my mind. I know my thoughts, I know my memories, you don't know them, right? But when all this gross and subtle body is incinerated by bliss, then what's mind becomes space-like, all-pervasive, omnipresent. So then there is, so wherever that awareness is omnipresent awareness, and so all this triple world, all this it becomes its body. That's why it is called the body, but of course it's not the body. So we find similarly in the Guhya Samaja Tantra too that Prāṇāyāma and Dharana, this retention meditation, also form this near actualization. But here, having expelled the breath in the shape of a small ball made, what they call, would use the term 5 jewels, meaning the 5 elements, earth, water, and so on. One should expel the breath consisting of those 5 elements in the right channel through the right nostril, and one should expel these elemental balls. These balls are called mandalas, right? From the left channel through the left nostril. And having expelled those elemental mandalas in the shape of a small ball implies that ball is unification of the wind of pranas of the right and left mandalas in the central channel. And transition of the phase of retention then takes place in this tantric system when the prana within the shape of a small ball enters the centers or these drops, bindus of the 4 chakras where it ceases. And this is called then near realization or Vajra recitation or Vajra japa, which is mattered by means of the 2 interrupted phases in the central channel, involving the pranayama and retention phases. So, what are the objects of meditation on pranayama or that involves pranayama? The object of meditation includes all the channels, winds and bindus, or drops of the body, but principally they consist of the 3 channels that extend from the navel upward, right and left channel and the central channel, and the 3 channels that extend downward from the navel, that is the channels of excrement, urine, and regenerative fluid. So this makes a total of the 6 channels. And then there are the life-sustaining wind and downward dispelling wind. They're called prana and apana. So in a pranayama, this is the object of meditation. Now, but what is the purpose? Now, if you ask, what's the purpose of meditation with pranayama? So in the Kalachakra Tantra, I'll give you a quotation. It is said, meditate each day on the yoga of the channels as a cause for the sake of the body. It is also said in the peace instruction of Kalachakra Pada, the elder, that in order for immutable bliss to rise, there is a mutable bliss which we experience, right, when we eat good ice cream, cookie, experience sexual bliss, any kind of bodily bliss that we experience or mental bliss is mutable bliss because it is conditioned bliss. Therefore, it is samsaric bliss because it rises on condition of having a good ice cream or a soft Belgian chocolate or whatever, right? But then as soon as those conditions cease, same with the sexual bliss, right, arises upon those conditions of sexual conduct. But then when those conditions are gone, then bliss is gone. But immutable bliss is not a conditioned bliss. It's not conditioned upon any of these factors. But it arises, right, through meditation. And then one meditates on the factors of these elements of the pranayama. So one set of the causes of the rising of immutable bliss is what's called the Mahamudra of empty form, which can be practiced even at the time of the first phase of the yoga or second phase of the yoga. The other is a complete conquest, mastery of the winds, being able to restrain them, being able to move them where we want to move them, by bind them in this central channel. Because when that happens, then the body is completely purified, resulting, they say, in immortality. You know, when you achieve this body of gnosis, Gnostic body, and mastery over the drops. And that is said to be the purpose of pranayama. Now, what are the minor results achieved by the practice of Mahayana? If you ask that, it is said that among the benefits of preventing the winds from flowing through the right and left channels are that the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas recognize that, and they make you offerings. They reveal the prophecies as to when you will achieve Buddhahood from this point onward, and they grant blessing. So also the 6 sensory objects arise spontaneously as appearances of gnosis, of this ultimate pure awareness. One attains the extrasensory perception of the 6 sense faculties and brings humans and non-humans under one's control. And what is the ultimate result of pranayama? The ultimate result is that one attains the deities of the set of 6 Buddhas, associated with the elements of wind and so on, beginning with Amoghasiddhi, Ratnasambhava, right? And all those Buddhas that you have studied and visualized in the stage of generation. But now, what is purified and what is a purifier in pranayama? That which is purified are the 6 psychophysical aggregates. In Vajrayāna, in these highest yoga tantras, they don't speak about 5 skandhas or 5 psychophysical aggregates. They speak about 6, and the 6 is aggregate of gnosis, because that is something that is inherent to us but not actualized due to those drops there in those 4 chakras that are kind of obscuring them. And there are 6 psychophysical aggregates because they're the 6 elements, not only 5. The 6th element being the element of gnosis that arises spontaneously in the body at the time of puberty. That's why they say always 6. So through pranayama, these 6 psychophysical aggregates and 6 elements are purified, including olfactory sense faculties, sense bases of tactile contact, the excursion channels of excretion of feces and so on. But that which purified is pranayama itself, and its divisions are the 10 elemental mandalas on the right and left channels that merged into the 10 shapes within the central channels that then give rise to those 10 appearances. But how long should one practice pranayama? It is said that one should practice it until all the winds flow through the central channel. Then one will gain mastery over holding and reversing what's called bodhicitta. Bodhicitta here refers to seminal drops, seminal fluids that are not released but are stacked along those 4 chakras. Because when these drops of bodhicittas come into those centers of those chakras, they give rise to the bliss. So one experiences bliss in the navel, in the heart, in the throat, and even in the forehead. So it's a different kind of bliss we are talking about. And that, through that bliss, right, because it comes with that heat that we mentioned before, is that those drops are melted. And with those drop centers, those chakras are melted, those chakras, those channels that are making up chakras themselves began to dissolve. And the whole system of channels, that 72,000 channels that flow through the body, also get dissolved. And when the subtle body gets dissolved, then also gross body, which could not exist without subtle body, becomes dissolved. So it is said that those of sharp faculties, when they say sharp faculties, means those who have practiced this and the masters of yoga can gain such mastery within 6 months. Now, what is the essential nature of pranayama? According to the Kailash Tantra, the winds from these right and left channels, when they're brought to halt in the central channel, and the winds that flow in the channels of excrement and urine are brought to halt in the channel below the navel, which is called Shankhini. So the pranayama is then meditative concentrations that unites the life-sustaining wind called prana, flowing in the central channel, and the downward dispelling wind that is flowing in that channel, central channel called Shankhini. They're brought together in the navel chakra. And that causes like an explosion. It's like an atomic bomb, so much heat, right? That is again brought up and down through chakras. What is appropriate time to practice pranayama? So according to the previously mentioned treatise by Taranatha, the appropriate time is when all the factors of meditative stabilization, that second phase of yoga, right, have entered one's mind stream. However, what is called the facsimile of pranayama, or pranayama facsimile, can be practiced by a novice, and somebody who is not yet mastered completely stages of pratyahara, of this retention, right, can be practiced once the novice has acquired some experience with the initial virtue of either the retraction phase or of meditative stabilization phase. So one doesn't have to be perfect. So there is something that's called like a facsimile of pranayama. But how to cultivate it? The answer is the Vajra recitation, as it is taught in the Kala Chakra Tantra or Guhya Samaja Tantra and so on. And what is a Vajra recitation? Now, in the Stanley Lai's commentary on the Kala Chakra Tantra, it explains this in this way, and I quote you, it says, prana is present on the three paths, means the prana that is present on the left and right is called the body Vajra recitation. So it's not, you are not really reciting the mantra, but the body is reciting the mantra. Because when those winds are brought in a central channel, the sound arises. It is called anada. It's called anahata. And anahata means not beaten, because all sounds, whether sound of a clapping of a hands or the sound we produce, speech, is beaten sound, because either lips are touching each other, or a tongue is touching teeth, or tongue is touching, there is always some friction taking place. Whereas this sound that arises in central channel, when all the pranas are brought in, it's kind of like a sound, something like shh, right? That sound spontaneously arises. That's why it's called the body's Vajra recitation. And the prana that is present on the right path is called the speech Vajra recitation, and the prana that is present in the middle path is called the mind Vajra recitation. I'm looking at the time, and there is still a lot to say, but I don't want to go over the time and keep you too long. So what do you suggest? We can stop here. I can continue, or shall we open it to questions and answers? I can stop. So Jamyang, what do you suggest?
If you want to go ahead a bit, if there's anything specific you'd like to cover, please go ahead. We're in no mad rush. And if you
Are you
want
sure?
yeah, if it's another 10, 20 minutes, I think we were all happy to hear. And then we can open for questions after.
All right. I thought, because I mentioned this facsimile of Prāṇāyāma, which is important, which is a practice in six-phase yoga of the stage of generation and moves into the stage of completion. But I don't know if it's getting too many details, and is it getting too complicated, because it is complicated. So okay, but feel free to interrupt me. Okay, and I won't feel offended at all. You say, okay, this is too much detail. So because the pranayama has two phases, the facsimile of pranayama, which is designed for the yogis who are beginners in this practice. Everybody at some point has to start it, right? And then the actual pranayama. So let me talk a little bit about this. So in the peace instructions of Mahapadita Shakya Sri, the Indian Padita whose lineage continue into Tibet, and he's mentioned here by Taranatha, the facsimile of pranayama involves the following practice. In the first one, the pathways of the channels are purified by way of that Vajra recitation as a preliminary practice, which I just spoke about, right? But once they are purified with the yoga of gentle winds, in which one fills up the winds and then expels them gently, the life-sustaining wind enters the central channel. That is a phase 2. The phase 3, when it has entered with the yoga of the rough winds, in which one holds the capsule of the vase, the life-sustaining wind is bound within the central channel. If it does not enter and is not bound, then with very forceful yoga, with forceful breath, the pathways of the right and left channels are blocked. And once they are closed off, if the lower office is forcefully blocked, then through the joining of the upper winds, the winds will be released. So then what happens is that with the yoga of steering the three tongues of flames that arise, one tastes the vital answers of what's called inner ambrosia. And this gives the rise to igniting of this chandali or kundalini. And then the life-sustaining wind and the downward dispelling wind merge so that one accomplishes deathlessness. And these are what is known as the 6 Vajra phrases, of which the first 4 consist of the fifth instructions on pranayama, and the final 2 consist of the past instructions of dharana or retention, because you can see how one kind of merges into, flows into the other, these 2 phases. Is this too many details? Is it too many details? I can't hear you.
No, I think it's okay. I think it's fine. Please go ahead.
All right. So let's look at the facsimile of pranayama. So in the actual piece instruction of pranayama, the meditation must be preceded by actually preliminary yogic physical exercises. So here we don't have time to talk about those exercises. It is interesting, like if you ask the Gelugpa masters of Kalachakra, they will know the names, but they don't seem to always know how these practices look like, whereas within the Jonangpa tradition, they do. So when this is done, when this yogic physical exercising are done, these are the first 3 prana exercises referred to as facsimile pranayama. These are ones that I'm going to mention. The first one, which purifies the pathways of the channel through what we call the Vajra recitation, involves a distinct type of a gaze called the gaze of Viknantaka, or the gaze of Amrita Kundali, because this gaze is a little bit like a fierce gaze in which it is directed slightly towards the upward, and then it is firmly focused at the level of the eyebrows. So in dispelling the residual winds 3 times, initially the mind is focused on the 3 phases of going out, going in, and pausing of the winds. That is the first focus of attention of this Vajra recitation. After that comes the second one, the second phase, if you like, in which one visualizes the 3 main channels in the body. You actually practice visualization. The central channel as the blue, extending from the low level of the navel all the way up through the crown at the head. Parallel to that on the right is visualize the red channel, to its left, white channel. And when the wind goes out, one imagines them beginning at the navel, rising from the central and right channel, entering through the nostril from the throat up to the crown. Then one imagines them passing along the entire length of the central channel and the left channel from the crown of the head to the throat. When they pass all the way to the navel and pause there, one imagines them filling only the central channel. And when the winds are flowing through the right nostril, they are in the form, when one visualizes them, in the form of the red light. And if they are flowing through the left nostril, they are white. And if they are flowing equally through both nostrils, they are green or blue. That is referred to as a second type of Vajra recitation. Then comes the third one. When the winds flow out, one imagines them as light rays accompanied by the sound ah. On the tips of the light rays, one visualizes the syllables ah. One doesn't pronounce them, but one sees them, one visualizes them. And when they flow in, they're accompanied by the syllable om at the tips of those light rays. Those two syllables do not pass only through the central channels. During the pause, inside the central channel, then there is the sound hum. And at the navel, one directs the mind to this visualized syllable hum. The colors of the syllables correspond to those of the wind. So if it is red, syllables are red, right? If white, white, or blue. These are called the practices of Vajra recitation with visualization. Following this comes the previously mentioned yoga of gentle winds, in which one brings the life-sustaining wind into the central channel by feeling it, and then gently expelling it through the right and left nostrils. First blocking the right nostrils and then blocking the left. The posture can have legs extended, retracted, or it can be cross-legged posture, known as Vajrayāna posture. If the winds are flowing from the left nostril, one firmly presses the palm of the right hand against the left armpits and the breast, and then presses down the left arm, making contraction. The regional wind are dispelled with the left index, right, like this, blocking blocking the right, so you do like this, blocking the left nostril. If they flow from the left nostril, then with the left hand and the right armpits, the wind flows through the left nostril, or else flows evenly. After alternating the right and left few times, they will flow evenly. And according to the tradition of the Shakyashri, once they do this is explained as performing the Vajra recitation, and they flow evenly, then one should meditate on the yoga of filling up the central channel, or what's called the vase breathing. Yeah, there is a lot to say. So after that comes the yoga of rough winds. Maybe I should just skip some of this. And then, but here, signs appearing by themselves. One is no longer visualizing anything. And when this happens, that one directs attention to the empty form that appears at the navel. And if it does not happen, then again one directs attention to the air, wherever an empty form arises, and so on. But always directs attention to the navel. So there is another tradition by Mahapandita Somanatha that also came to Tibet, which it depends slightly differently, but I won't bother you with that because it is a lot to say in details. But let me just, in a written piece instruction of Prāṇāyāma within Jonampa tradition, it is explained that one should forcefully draw the vase capsule, because there are these lotuses are like little capsules or like little caps, you know, turned, one is turned this way, another is turned that way. But he explains that one should forcefully draw the vase capsule that holds the life-sustaining wind and down-dispelling wind into the other chakras. And this assumes that one has achieved mastery and stability of the navel chakra, and that has one gained mastery over the winds. And this would complete the fifth instruction on pranayama for this phase. But as a continuation of the previous technique, there is a series of 3 auxiliary practices, which I will skip because we are running over time. But let me talk about, they talk about the obstacles, because all kinds of obstacles can arise when one practices pranayama, because these are very powerful practices and they should not be done without the guidance of a master who has done these practices. And there are 2 methods of dispelling these obstacles, and I'll talk just about, because one of them is pranayama. So obstacles that arise in pranayama can be also dissolved by pranayama itself. For example, one may feel that one's skull's bones have been torn off due to meditating on pranayama because of the pain in the head and in the heart. One may feel shooting pain in the navel, or have a feeling as if the skin on the top of the head has been pierced with a needle, and a feeling as if a stick had been stuck into the abdomen. Or one can see circles of rice spinning wildly inside the body. So these obstacles may arise and they can be debilitating, right? So in those cases then, it is advised that the winds must be brought into the central channel through pranayama, right? But if that does not happen, one must set aside efforts on meditating on pranayama for a while, and then resort to the massage, having a good food, and so on. Practicing the yogic physical, or one can practice the yogic physical exercises of jumping up in the air, dropping down, exhaling forcefully with the sound of ha, and expelling the breath many times. And it is said that this all can dispel those obstacles. In general, it is also said to dispel the obstacles of pranayama. It is important, when one does it, it is important to dispel the minor obstacles first, because the minor obstacles can be turned into main obstacles. And minor obstacles can be then dispelled with peaceful means. Medium obstacle with medium means, and the great obstacle with strong means, because they're difficult to remedy. Mm-hmm. And okay, let me just finish with what are the signs of success in meditation with pranayama. It says that all signs of pranayama can be summarized in terms of the 5 kinds of meditative experiences of the body, speech, mind, visions that one gains, and dreams, which emerged by the power of the 10 winds from the left and right channels coming to halt within the central channel. The valid cognition of this is gnosis, that arises when the winds of conceptualizations come to halt within the central channel, and 4 kinds of direct perception emerge, among which mental perception becomes primary. Now, what is the relevance? This is my last relevance of pranayama for dharana, because I said these first three are causal factors for the last four, and you can't practice dharana properly without having done some pranayama. So the practices of pranayama and dharana are very similar insofar as they both involve vas breathing, right? Bringing in the central channel breath into the navel, into the belly, and holding it there. Meditation of the vas breathing of pranayama is intended to block the pathways of the right and left channels and to merge the prana, the life-sustaining wind, and the apana, the downward dispelling wind, right, in the navel. But the purpose of this is that in the dharana phase, in that retention phase, the very winds in which the life-sustaining wind and downward dispelling wind are already merged and dissolve into those drops of the central channel. They don't do, this is not completed in a pranayama stage. That's why the transition from pranayama to the next phase is kind of spontaneous flow. They kind of sequentially simply flow, all these phases flow each other, ending up in a final phase in which you may not have body anymore. Or you have a body made out of 5 types of gnosis of the Buddha. There is so much detail, but you can see how complex it is and how everything is interrelated in those phases. The ideal is for advanced yogis to practice is for 3 years, 3 months, 3 weeks, 3 fortnights, 3 days, 3 fortnights, 3 weeks, and 3 days. It is said that one can achieve Buddhahood in that period by doing these methods.
Thank you.
So that's it. I don't know, maybe you have questions, but I haven't seen them.
Thank you so much, Vesna. I have a quick question before opening up the floor. Actually, what you just mentioned about attaining Buddhahood, it seems that in many texts it mentions how you can attain Buddhahood. No, there's a lot of importance given to these exercises, also, especially in the Tibetan tradition, like rainbow body,
right,
and this kumbhaka, bringing all these miraculous effects, some of which you mentioned during your talk. Would you think it's strictly necessary for a yogi to practice these breathing exercises to be enlightened, or can you get enlightened without doing pranayama?
Not in these systems, in Anuttara, in this Unexcelled Yoga Tantras, right? That's a part. If you see pranayama placed right in the center, it is a 3rd out of 6. You can't progress in the other 3 without it, without the mastery of vital energies, because you can't bring those energies into the drops in the centers of these chakras if you don't have a mastery. So it is crucial within this. If you want to practice 6-phase yoga, then yeah, pranayama is central. And it's very different. I mean, in the Patanjali's yoga, it is the 4th limb, 4th phase, which is also has a central position. But there, it is just done to pacify the mind by, inhaling, exhaling, and then holding the breath in the central channel, it is done even in Tibetan yogas or Tibetan practice just before entering any kind of meditation, because it calms down conceptuality, conceptual mind becomes calmer, and then it's much easier to enter meditation rather than struggling with all this commentaries and thoughts that are taking place in the mind. Just doing this in a central 3 times already calms mind, calms anxiety. I even tell to students when they're taking exam, do these 3. If you're panicking about exam just before you write it. So, because we can do this in our classes. But that's a different than pranayama of tantric systems, which is far more complex and demanding. But again, not to be done without any guidance, because it's very powerful if we are waking up this fire in a body, which has greatly transformative, can make you crazy, can make you cause all kinds of health issues if vital energies get stuck in a certain place, right? So it has to be done for a beginner, has to do it gently at first before mastering it. So it's not easy. It looks like, oh, okay, 3 years I could do it.
Yeah. In fact, I think Professor Pierce Salguero in the U.S., he's working on a book on meditative illnesses of the wind caused by exactly the wind going in the wrong places, etc. Quite common. Okay, if anybody else has some questions, please, you're welcome.
I think your sound is somebody's.
Yes, maybe I
Mr.
can.
Schumann is speaking, but the sound is turned off.
We can't hear you, Mr. Schumann. Nothing still.
You need to open your microphone.
I think your mic is opened, but maybe
it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Can you? Yes, many thanks for profound teachings. A question: where can we read this system, especially the Taranata system? Gives a book or not?
Well, it's in the progress. So Alan and I are working on it. That's why I have drawn lots from it, because Taranata system really gives the best, I think, explanations of this. And he offers also different traditions within Tibet that have developed from the different tantric tradition from India. So it's quite extensive and it's very detailed. It's really detailed. So, I'm also looking in Shavaripas and other Indian commentators to bring all of this together. So it's a project that we have recently started, and it will be available, but unfortunately not at the moment, as we are still working on it.
Thanks.
It will be shared. It will be published.
Yes, question, what do you think about Tutyom Rinpoche, his teachings? I find it's very, very special. How do you think about Tutyom Rinpoche system?
Oh, yeah, this is a Nyima, yeah. That's a Nyima tradition.
Nyima,
yeah. Definitely there are some parallels.
Yes.
Between the because Nyima material, even though approach can be somewhat different, there are some theoretical bases, not only in terms of achieving a rainbow body, where they have a facsimile rainbow body, an actual rainbow body, but also in terms of the elements. There are some theoretical, definitely, similarities, especially between the Kala Chakra Tantra and the Nima material, more than earlier Tantras and the Nima material, in terms of the elements manifesting to us, experienced by us as, or how to go this way, that enlightened awareness, which consists of 5 types of wisdom or gnosis, it manifests as 5 lights, right? Green light, blue light, white, red, yellow. But when we, physical beings, whether subtle or gross, doesn't matter, when we perceive, we dwelt in this ultimate reality because it's all pervasive, it's here. But to me, it manifests as the world made out of elements, solidity, fluidity, motion, heat, right? And why I am not experiencing this ultimate reality as the 5 lights of wisdom, but experiencing them as the element because of that subtle body, because of these karmic winds, which are material. So what happens is then this subtle body is like a curtain or a screen through which I am looking at ultimate reality. But where there is a green light of gnosis, I experience wind. Where is a yellow light of gnosis, I experience this as an earth element. I'm experiencing element where ultimately there are none. All that there is this ultimate pure awareness called Yeshe, Tibetan or Jnana or Gnosis, right? But so beings, it is said that beings who are born whose subtle body is made out of 2 elements or 1 element, like a fire element, they experience this space where I am now, they experience things as fire. It's not like hell is somewhere really underground, right? Where volcano is, but rather this ultimate reality made out, consists of 5 types of wisdom, is experienced as hell. Because that mind, that samsaric mind, is accompanied with 1 element only. Those beings born from a womb, it says, experience it as a 5 elements, but there is no none. So that is something very similar you can find in also this Nima material.
Yes, many thanks. Another question. I think you know the 5 stages of Tsongkhapa, and the central point is the illusory body. You have not spoken about the illusory body. Find in your system also the illusory body or not?
No, the illusory body is something characteristic of Guhya Samaja Tantra, Chakra Samvara Tantra. That's something, there is not much mentioned in, just like in the Dzogchen material, so here they don't, in the Kala Chakra system, in the Janampa system, they don't talk much about illusory body.
But
because the path is even though everybody practices 6-phase yoga within this highest yoga tantra, the path is not the content of those yoga are not exactly the same, and goal is not exactly the same. So practicing Guhya Samaja, you achieve rainbow body after you die. You can achieve it in the intermediate state, but you don't achieve it the same way. You don't get rid of a gross physical body. That's why sometimes in some systems, you have seen when a monk or a nun dies, the body shrinks, right? To the this size, to the baby size, which means that they have done these practices, but so the pranic, the subtle body, this pranic body has contracted. Good part of it is already eliminated, but not entirely. So when they die in that intermediate state, they are achieving a rainbow body, call it, if you like, illusory body. But in the Kama chakra system, it's different. You can achieve it before death.
Thanks.
At least
Another question, or in connection with the last, the achievement of Buddhahood is only possible when you can have a uniting of the very subtle mind and the very subtle body. And with the connection of these two brings the Buddhahood, and not only the development of the Buddha mind. It must be a connection between Buddha mind and Buddha body on this very subtle level. What do you think about this?
Well, in this system, Buddha, there is no really subtle body. There is a Gnostic body, which is not body at all, right? It is this all-pervasive enlightened awareness, which consists of wisdom and compassion. It's a yoga, it's a union of non-duality of wisdom and compassion, or non-duality of bliss and emptiness. It is self-awareness. It is because it doesn't have an object, right? And mind cannot see itself, but it is aware of it. It is aware of its bliss, and it is aware of its emptiness. So where I'm going, yeah. But from there emerges a Dharma body, or Dharmakaya, right? Dharmakaya can emerge from it. From Dharmakaya can emerge a Sambhogakaya, or enjoyment body, right? And then from that, Sambhogakaya can emerge Nirmana Kaya. But none of them are really bodies, right? They are appearances, manifestations that spontaneously emerging according to the needs of and faculties of sentient beings. But it is one reality. By ordinary beings may see it as emanation body, right? See, Buddha Shakyamuni is made of physical substance, because that's how our ordinary minds see the elements where there are none. For the great bodhisattvas and others, that same Gnostic body, this pure awareness will manifest as enjoyment body, the Sambhogakaya. And those whose minds are more purified, they will see that in their meditation or in a dream. They will receive teachings, from them, like a Sangha receiving teachings from Maitreya. If you are already achieving some form of Buddhahood, you will be realizing and you will be seeing this Gnostic body as a Dharmakaya. But if you're kind of realizing it through emptiness, but if you're through Vajrayāna practice, then you realize it becomes a self-awareness, this enlightened mind consisting of bliss and emptiness. I think we lost
thanks.
Jamyang. So that's, but reality is one, right? There are no many realities, no many bodies, just accessed according to our own mental dispositions, our own karmas, our own mental purifications, seen differently.
Many thanks, yes.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Vesna.
You're welcome.
Anybody else with some questions? Or Vesna, would you like to add anything before finishing?
Oh, I talked a lot to you. I don't want to overburden you.
Yeah. Thank
It's a
you.
weekend.
It was very interesting. I would have more questions, but I think it's too much. And yeah, thank you, Vesna. As I mentioned in the
You're
beginning,
welcome. My pleasure.
we're very happy that you made time to do this. We've been speaking about you giving a talk for, I think, many years, but then some
Yeah, sorry.
you're in California, then you're in Mongolia, then you're
Yeah,
in.
because we teach a lot, you
I
know.
know it's difficult, and I
More
think
than in Europe, we teach and we are expected to
I
do
know
research and write and
Americans actually work hard,
administrative.
not like us Europeans.
So,
Yeah.
but I'm glad we connected, and
Yes.
hopefully, even if it's just too complicated and too abstract at the moment, just keep in mind how complex pranayama is in the
Yes.
tantric system with the Patanjalis or other pranayamas that within a Hindu tradition.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody, for attending. We'll have
Thank
another
you.
talk,
Thank you for
and
your questions.
thank you. And
Sure.
talk soon. All the best, everybody. Bye bye.
Bye. Enjoy your weekend.
Thank you. Bye. Bye.
Bye bye.